On Jordan's stormy banks I stand and cast a wishful eye to Canaan's fair and happy land where my possessions lie. I am bound for the promised land. I'm bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land. Oh, all those wide extended plains shines one eternal day. There God the Son forever reigns and scatters night away. I am bound for the promised land. I'm bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised. We'd all stand on the last. When shall I reach that happy place and be forever blessed? When shall I see my Father's face and in His bosom rest? I am bound for the promised land. I'm bound for the promised land. Oh, who will come and go with me? I am bound for the promised land.
Amen. Good evening. Hope you're bound for the promised land. And I'd like to invite your attention to Revelation 17 tonight. Revelation 17. Last time we met, we made it all the way through 16. We'll not do that in 17 tonight. I'd like to start in our reading with the first 6 verses. It's far more than what we'll actually cover. John, in his vision, the island of Patmos, he's covered the seals, the trumpets, and the vials. And now in this parenthetic portion, we read, "And there came one of the 7 angels, which had 7 vials, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I'll show ye the judgments of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. She hath carried me away in the spirit of the wilderness, and I saw a woman set upon the scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet-colored, and decked with gold and precious stone, and pearls, having golden cups in her hand, full of abominations, filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the Great, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration." Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we thank you so much for your word. God, we thank you for the revelation of Jesus Christ found here as penned by John as he delivered it after his vision on the island of Patmos. God, we know that your word is clear. It is blessed that those that read this and hear this. God, I pray that you would bless us with understanding. God, that you would open our hearts and our minds that we might understand this, because in understanding this, we understand you. We know that your word instructs us that we ought to ask for wisdom. In particular, in this portion, we ask you would give us that. Lord, we ask you to just continue to be with Sister Green, give the family direction, give them wisdom at this time. Be with Brother Green as this time might draw him closer to you. We thank you so much for Sister Diane's disposition through all of this and her witness. Pray these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Just an update on Sister Green. She's completed her radiation for the spinal part. It'll be a week before they deal with the tumor in the brain. It's about the size of a ping pong ball. 10, 12 treatments there. They're talking about maybe letting her go home. Her husband and her boys are working on that. And her daughter-in-law is working to create a path whereby she can have a more holistic approach. And so she's reached out to my wife, and so they're kind of working on a plan for that. And so just be in prayer. I ask her, what do you want us to pray about? And she goes, pray for wisdom in the decisions that we make going forward. So thank you guys for your support for them during this time period. When you have a major medical event, all of life stops. So thank you for that. Revelation 17. What is happening as this vision unfolds is it's actually kind of beginning to shrink a little bit. But here we are in 17, and it is full of symbolism with divine insight, offering glimpse into the ultimate judgment of evil. That's where we're heading. And so we are heading to the point where in chapter 19, and it's going to be swift, that God's judgment comes very rapidly. But you're going to see some interesting things as this unfolds. You're going to see that Satan is going to get a coalition together. And it's going to be political and it's going to be religious. And have we seen this before, where politics and religion come together? We're going to cover this multiple times, but you're going to see all the way throughout the Bible that politics and religion come together. Tower of Babel. You're going to see this when the Jews needed to deal with Jesus. What did they do? They make an alignment with who? With Rome. Yes? We see this later on. In 312, Constantine has a dream. With this thou shalt conquer. Fiery cross. 325, they have the Council of, I'm seeing the word, but I'm not going to be able to pronounce it right. The Nicene Council. And this is when they develop the Catholic Church. What does Catholic mean? Universal. Universal. This is when the universal visible church is first formed. And so you see that this is a political leader that sees that if I have religion, I can get the hearts of mankind. You begin to see this. Now, what is also going to come out in this, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, is the great harlot. Is that a word we use a lot today? Isn't it amazing? It's almost vanished from our vocabulary and our vernacular. If you were to use it today, how would you use it? Do what? A bad woman? When you were growing up, did they ever use that word? They never did. Interesting. Anybody else? Yeah. Prostitute. What were other words that were used? Whore. These are words that were often used, but today, we're like, this isn't being live streamed, is it? Because these words are a taboo. And this is a word that we're going to look at. Now, the meaning that it has is, it's more of a religious thing, is she doesn't care. She doesn't care what your beliefs are. Let me ask you this, just at this juncture. Is it important what you believe?
Amen.
Do you know it's not important to everybody? Is doctrine important? You can't have spiritual purity without doctrine. And there are people that say, well, we don't teach doctrine. But that doesn't even make sense. What does doctrine mean? Teaching. So to say we don't teach doctrine, that's to say we don't teach teaching. It doesn't actually make sense. There is a doctrine being taught. The question is, what is it? Now, this harlot embodies rebellion against God and His truth. And so we're going to see a contrast between wickedness and eternal righteousness. And it's going to point us to the hope in Christ in His ultimate victory. Is He going to be the victor? He already is. He already is. There is no equal to the Lord. Are you with me? The devil is not the opposite of God. He was a created being. He was an angel. God created him. He's not an equal. And so this is why this little end time story in Revelation 19 is going to go quick. And so this chapter is going to serve as a warning and also a promise. And it warns of the consequences of idolatry and sin while reminding the believer of the sovereignty of God over all things. And this is a great spiritual and mental exercise to go through, is to think about the sovereignty of God. Just what is God in control of? You know, when you go through that exercise, as you elevate God, your anxiety almost vaporizes. Why? Because we get anxious when we feel like things are out of control. This is a reminder to us that God is in control. We look at our world today and we're like, man, it just seems chaotic. The scriptures show us that this has to happen before God brings all things back in order. Chapter 17 and 18 are parenthetic. What does that mean, parenthetic? What does it mean? Actually, it means what happens when you do a parentheses? You expound, yeah. So when you're writing a sentence and you put something in parentheses, it's like, okay, let me give you further clarification of this. This is what this means. And this is what these two chapters are now. We've looked at this before. We've called them an intermission, an interlude, these sorts of things. And chapter 7, verses 1 through 17, parenthetic. Revelation 10, 1 through Revelation 11, 14, parenthetic. Revelation 12, 1 through 15, 8, parenthetic. And so what we see is that you'll have the seals, take a break, you give some explanation. Then you'll have the trumpets, we take a break, give some explanation. We had the vials, we take a break, we give some explanation. Now what we find is that while we're going through the judgments, it's just bang, bang, bang. When he stops and gives us explanation, it's like, these are the head-scratching sections. Isn't that right? Like, remember, we talked about the 144,000. They're in the parenthetic part. That's like lots of questions, like, where are they? You know, and for a long time, it's like, oh, they were in Petra. Well, if they were in Petra, and God's hiding them there, then he would almost have to somehow blind the eyes, the minds of these people so they couldn't find them if that's where they're at. We don't know where they're at, but we know they're there. There's the two witnesses. So it's like, who are they? Are they Moses and Elijah? Who are they? Who are these two? And so it creates a lot of discussion when you get into these parenthetic parts. Where are we? Parenthetic part. So it's going to create what? A lot of discussion. What does that mean? I'm going to give you either ors. It's this or it's this. Why don't I just tell you this is what I think? Yes, because you wouldn't have. I don't want to be your surrogate brain. I want you to do what? I want you to think. I want you to research. I want this to upset your equilibrium to the point where you go back and research this. But that doesn't mean you do a Google search and find out what AI says or Grok. That's not what this is about. This is about searching the scriptures. Will you know the answer for the question you have today, tomorrow? If you're studying it right, you will not. Why? Because it's difficult. And so you might have a note where you write down and like, these are the things that kind of bug me. And I want to take a look at these things. All right. So there is a commentator by the name of Beale, and he believes that Revelation 17 through Revelation 19:10 is an interpretive review of the sixth and the seventh bowls. What does that mean? So that means if you look at Revelation 16:12 through the end of the chapter, and it starts with the sixth angel, and it's telling you about the sixth bowl and the seventh bowl, that chapters 17, 18, and the first part of 19 are explanation on those. You might recall when we took a look at those, it talks about the Euphrates drying up. It talks about the unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon. And these are spirits of devils working miracles, going forth unto the kings of the earth and the whole world to gather them to battle of the great day of God. And so this is why we see Bill is saying this parenthetic, these parentheses, are explaining that. Have we ever seen this anywhere else in the Bible? Yes. Genesis chapter 2 is a parenthetic portion that explains what happened in chapter 1. What does that mean? You get an overview of what happened in creation, chapter 1. In chapter 2, he goes into detail. And in that detail, he talks about how he created man. So you see this in the Bible. This isn't a foreign idea that is only found in Revelation. We do that as well, don't we? Don't we say something and we go, well, let me explain. Do we do that? And so this is exactly what we find Beale is saying more than likely is happening here. And we're gonna be talking about this back and forth, but you're gonna see Babylon come up here. You're gonna see Babylon come up here. And this is someplace we've heard before. So the first instance that I know about it is the Tower of Babel. Well, what happened at the Tower of Babel? Tried to build a gate to God. And that's interesting if you think about it. What do they think this structure looked like? They suspect it looked like a ziggurat. What's a ziggurat? Sister Sandy's going to tell us. A ziggurat is like an old school wedding cake. You know how you start big on the bottom and you just keep stacking that thing? That's what a ziggurat looks like. Some are square, some are round. If you've ever been to Mexico or South America, you've probably visited a ziggurat. We visited Chichen Itza, right? Not together, but we did. And it's this pyramidal thing that has these... Did you climb the stairs? They are steep. But the thing is, you got to know where the top is so that you know where the bottom is, how big the bottom is. Is this making sense? If I'm going to spread this thing out, I got to know how tall I'm going so I know how wide to start. So somehow they thought in their minds they knew the height of the gate to heaven, the gate to God. And so they put their minds together and they worked in an effort to do this. And you can go back and you can read these portions there in Genesis and you can take a look at that. But this is exactly what they did, is they were going to do that. So was this sanctioned by God at all? This was man's way of doing this. Who do you think was instrumental behind all this? Yeah, Satan. He is always trying to provide an alternative route for God's people. Is there any other place where there was an alternative route? When Israel split, you've got Israel and you've got Judah. They split. It's like, hey, why don't we, was it Rehoboam that said, or Jeroboam? I'm putting you on the spot. The leader of Israel said, hey, why don't we we'll put a place of worship at Dan, and was it Shechem? And then a place in the south. It'll come to me. I'm doing this totally off the cuff. And so what's interesting is we went to the place in Dan and we looked at it. That's why I remember. And I believe on the altar they had a golden calf, if I remember them telling me right. Well, that doesn't look like the altar in Jerusalem. The enemy provided a convenient alternative for them. Men like convenience. So we're going to talk about Babylon. There are those that believe that there is a tie between Babylon referenced here and Rome. And it is interesting that they use 1 Peter 5:13 to make this tie. The church that is at Babylon, elect together with you, salute you, and so does Marcus, my son. John Gill says, some by Babylon understand Rome, which is called in a figurative sense in the book of Revelation. Where is Babylon today? Where would it be? Anybody know? Iraq. It's in Iraq. Also, did the nation of Israel spend any time there in Babylon at all? 70 years in captivity. What's interesting is when they had the opportunity to be free, some of them actually stayed behind. That's interesting to think about. When Daniel had his vision in Daniel chapter 2, when he interpreted the vision of the king, the head of gold pictured Babylon. And that was the first empire of that dream. But as we look at this, it could be easy to get trapped up in locations, and if it's in Iraq, would that be Rome, or would that be more of a Muslim influence? I think what you're going to find when we look at this, that what we're looking at more so is typologies, and we'll go into that, but the fact that this represents something. There's a term, I was a little late to the party on this term. I know what people were talking about for a while. They'd go, she's such a Karen. Do you guys know what that is? That doesn't mean her name is Karen. And I don't even know where this came from. If you know later, you can explain to me. And if you don't know, talk to Brother CW and he can explain it to you. And so, similar idea. Chapter 17, we're going to see the religious system. Chapter 18, more the financial commercial system. And so we're going to tie these together. Because not only is there a political thing going on and a religious thing going on, there's a financial part to all of this as well. Is that true? And so all of these are going to be working together as we look at this. If it sounds like there's a lot of setup to this, there is a lot of setup because there's a lot going on, and we need to kind of understand a little bit about the moving pieces before we get into it. We're only going to look at 2 verses tonight, and all God's people said. And so let's take a look at some things about Rome. Rome, when it was spoke of, embodied certain qualities that when you spoke of Rome, a lot of people thought of Babylon too, because when Babylon was in its pinnacle, these were the same kind of things that you saw. And so you saw luxury, you saw arrogance, you saw spiritual corruption, you saw hostility towards God's people. And so these are the things you saw. Until Rome absorbed Christianity, there was hostility. Until Christianity could become useful, there was hostility. You guys familiar with a little bit of history about how that happened? There was a couple of groups that were beginning to kind of see things a little bit different. This is about 251 AD. There was a guy named Cornelius and another guy named Novatian. They were pastors. And Cornelius thought, look, Rome is really starting to expand. And if we're going to gain access into the community like we need to, then we need to be very friendly with Rome. Novatian, his mindset was, we need to stick to the truth. And so, as they went along, this divide got wider. And so, Cornelius took his people, and Novatian, they stayed the course. His group was called the Cathari, and that means the pure, because they would not compromise. Cornelius's people began to kind of set the stage for this alignment between Rome and those that were religiously compromised. And that's the seed bed that Constantine used to start his universal church. Babylon. In this section, we're going to see that, that she stands for man that is apart from God in an organized but godless community. This comes from a commentator named Morris. And what we also see is that Babylon is a type or a picture of the entrenched world in complete resistance to God. Can you be religious and be resistant to God? What would be an example of that? I'm religious, I'm against God. How about those that killed Jesus? Would that be a pretty good example? You've got a religious group that want nothing to do with the one true God. They don't want anything to do with him. They have created a God that fits their schedule, their way of life, how they interpret the Word of God. Is that true or no? They were really holding to the Babylonian Talmud. And so, and that's an interesting study to go down. So my mother-in-law wanted me to use more intelligent words, and so that's what this sentence is. It's for her. So, Sister Lavana, Babylon is an eschatological symbol of satanic deception and power. Is that good? What does eschatological mean? End times. Study of end times. Eschatology. Study of end times. And it's divine mystery that can never be wholly reduced to empirical, earthly institutions. And so what this means is that when you take a look at what is going on during this time period, it is Satan mustering all that he has, all of his armies, all of the people he can deceive, everything. This is his last hurrah. Do you think he knows this? So let me tell you about a thought I had. He's going to have to create this in such a way that everyone accepts it. How's he going to do that? Does Satan know what you're thinking? Only God knows your heart. Satan has to watch you. He has to see your patterns. He has to listen to you. He has to observe you. And he can't be everywhere, so he has to have his minions do that. How can he figure out everything? How can he figure out what my thoughts are, my passions, my desires? How can he figure all that out? How can he track my every move? Anybody? They're building data centers all over the place. Do you guys realize this? People are starting to figure out that all this farmland that was been bought the last 5 years, everybody thought it was like to take care of our, to take control of our food. Now they're realizing, oh man, all that land was bought near water. There's one in Boise, isn't that right? Where they're trying to put in, oh no, it's a mine. They're trying to put in a mine because they got a mine to get this stuff. And so they're putting these places. I know there's one in Ohio that I've been watching. And what's in Ohio? Farm ground. And so they bought all this farm ground, and they're building this thing. Why do you need a data center? What's a data center for? Why do we need all this?
So they can track us.
They store all this stuff. I don't know if you know this, but they can tell where your eyes look on your phone, on your tablet, on your television if you've got a camera. We rented a car this summer, and you rent a car, you don't know what you're going to get. You know what I mean? It's like the claw. It's like, hope I get something good. And we got a Mazda XC9. It's a big Mazda SUV. I'm driving this thing, and it keeps flashing that I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. You guys like people telling you what to do?
Especially a car.
Well, I'm pretty good at finding the rumble strip over here and the dots over here. Pretty good at it, but not on this trip. And it was telling me to pay attention. I was driving straight. I know it's rare, but I'm driving straight. I told her, there's a retina scanner in here. Now I sound like a raving lunatic. And it's got a computer screen on this thing right here, and it's got a camera right there. I take me a sticky, and I cut me a little piece, and I put it on there, and my driving dramatically improved. Because what I do is when we drive places, I look. So I don't know who else knew I was looking. And I don't know who was looking at me. I don't know if anyone's looking at me. But I covered them up. So this was the thought I had. Could this be a way that the enemy knows everything about us where he can create a perfect religion for us? So we mentioned this universal religion. When we went into the Philippines, we noticed that universal religion, you guys know what I'm talking about, that universal religion? What it had was it had remnants of their traditional religion that they had in the Philippine Islands. And I asked the missionary, I go, how come they're doing this stuff? This is paganism. And he goes, well, when they first come to the island, they wanted the people to really partake of it, and so they mixed their religion with what was there. Sounds like Daniel's interpretation of the vision of the mixture of iron and clay. There's this mixture. All right. Verse 1. And there came one of the 7 angels, which had 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto him, Come hither, I will show you unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. So you see, this angel invites John to witness the judgment of the great harlot who sat on many waters. Come and see. Now, it says, and there came one of the angels of the came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials. So now you can see why this one commentator was saying more than likely it's the one that had 6 and 7, because this verse says it's one of them that said, come and see. And so one of these that had it said, come and see. And then we see that this is a harlot that sits upon many waters. Well, waters, we have talked about in the past, represents what? People. It's the people. And so it's the people, multitudes, nations, and tongues. And so we see that this represents, and if you look at verse 15 of chapter 17, you'll see it signifies the global influence that she has. She is a symbol of spiritual adultery through her alliance with all these earthly kings. And so you're going to see that what she is going to do is that she's going to do what they have done in the past, is she is going to make alliances with all of these kings. Have you ever seen like a religious leader start making political alliances? Yes, they do. You've seen it. And at that point, you begin to kind of scratch your head and go, I don't know if this is a great thing or not. And there's one particular organization that has a tendency to do it a lot. So this great harlot, you see this connection between Babylon and immorality. Revelation 14:8, says that she is the personification of spiritual fornication or idolatry. Revelation 14:8. You see this in Isaiah 23, 15 through 17, Jeremiah 2:20 through 31, Jeremiah 13:28, Ezekiel 16, 17 through 19, Hosea 2:5, Nahum 3:4. You see this over and over and over. Muntz says that the harlot represents spiritual apostasy. That's what it represents. And you can't find that, any more vivid than in Satan himself. So what is she going to do? If she's the harlot, and she is the epitome of spiritual apostasy, and she sets on many waters, she's going to lead the world into false religion. That's what she's going to do. And it's going to be a false religion. Now, this is where this part of your mind where you just wrangle that you're like, how can this be? How can this be? You got 3 major religions. Is that true? Christianity, Judaism, Muslim. Now, there's some other religions as well. But these 3 are at odds with one another, are they not? can we really get along with Judaism? No, because they reject Jesus. The Muslims don't reject Jesus, do they? But they have a different God, do they not? Completely different. And what do they want to do to us? Kill us, according to the Quran. They say they don't. They say it's a religion of peace. That's not what their book says. And so when we make statements like that, they say we're misinterpreting it. So you have to ask your question, how does this all work? So this is why we covered Ezekiel 38 before we got to this part. And this is why we talk about, at this point, the rapture's already happened. Because no matter what your position is, unless you are at the end of the week, and there's very few people there, or amillennial, but any other view, you're gone. So the true Christians are gone. The only things left are those that convert. Ezekiel 38, if you believe that happens before, the Muslims have been dealt with. And so this is the time of Jacob's trouble. The Lord is dealing with those. He's going to bring them all in to a one world religion. The terms are ecumenicalism. And so this is this idea that we can all get together. We can all be okay. Well, there's a problem with that even in Christianity. Do all groups of Christians believe that salvation is the same thing? Some believe if you just say a prayer whenever you want to, then you're going to be saved. That same group believes you can lose your salvation. Some believe that you can't say that prayer. God just selects you. Some believe that you got to say a prayer and you got to be baptized or you won't be. Some say you got to say a prayer, be baptized, and speak in tongues. And there's more flavors than that. I mean, it's like Baskin Robbins when it comes to all the views of salvation. Here's the thing. How many gospels do you think Jesus preached? How many gospels do you think the disciples preached? You think we need to preach that disciple? Ephesians chapter 4. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. We need to preach the truth. And so during this time period, it's going to be a situation where he's going to get everybody to not really think about all that and all follow together. You think about what's happening right now. What's happening to critical thinking right now? Is there any critical thinking? The age of reason is gone. We're in the age of emotion, are we not? All right. Verse 2, this will be short. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornications. The king of the earth. These are the world leaders. And so they're going to join in with her by using and uniting with the system that she symbolizes. And so you're going to find a religious compromise throughout this whole thing. And there will be no true worship. At this point, the true worshipers are with the Lord. And so all that's left is false worship. When someone is drunk with wine or any other substance, they're what? Are they controlled by that substance? And so this talks about and the inhabitants of the earth being drunk with the wine of her fornication. It's like whatever she's doing, they're completely controlled by it and enamored by it. And their reason has been cast out the window. And it's gone. Yesterday, I don't know, on that Clovis chat, I saw, and I don't know when it happened, but there was a man that was highly intoxicated that ran into a power pole. And that power pole came right down on his car and just smashed his car. He survived. Of course, they said in the thing, fortunate that nobody else was involved in that. I don't know how anyone doesn't see pictures like that and go, I don't want any part of that. I don't know how people don't have an inkling about what Revelation says and say, I don't want any part of this. And so this ought to, even though we're not going to be a part of that, if we read a little further, let's just jump up there. Read in 19. We're going to look at verse 7. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor unto him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife has made herself ready. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed, fine linen, clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. King James says righteousness of the saints. And he said unto me, right blessed are they which are called into the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said unto me, these are the true sayings of God. This ought to be what we ought to strive for, is that kind of connection, that kind of relationship with God. In John 15, Jesus says, I no longer call you servants, but I call you friends. And he says, it's because I share with you what my Father has shared. And that is a close relationship. This is beyond that. This is beyond that. And this is what we ought to strive for. So, we started chapter 17. It's going to be kind of a journey. We've got through kind of looking at some of the pieces, and so we're going to just kind of chip away at the verses. I know for some of you that have had a long day, this was a little tedious, and so I will work at clipping along a little better. So that'll be what I will work on. And so, and then Sister LaVonna, I will try to work on a better sentence. So eschatological. Thank you for letting me have fun, and I appreciate it. Any announcements?